Hey everybody, it is Thursday, October 12th, 2023, and I am here at the NYU Grossman School of Medicine at the NYU Langone Health Center with Karen Ross, and today's episode is called Karen Ross Now. The reason why I say now is because it definitely is an advocacy platform today discussing about hypnotherapy and mental health. Now, if you remember, last week's episode was pretty much an awareness of what October's health months were about. There was breast cancer awareness and, of course, mental health and neurological awareness. And I remember saying that hopefully in the future, I'll be able to come back and talk about mental health with someone else at the same time when we go over other kind of healthcare awareness months that are in the calendar. And I asked the universe, and I already got my wish, because I'm letting everyone know at this moment that Karen Ross will be joining me as a regular correspondent on Frank About Health in the future. Well, obviously focused on mental health issues, but she will be my co-anchor when I advocate for specific health moments, whatever month of the year it is and whatever the issue is. But more importantly, I want to thank Sam Leibowitz for introducing me to her. She is definitely very influential in her own part. We'll learn more about on today's show. She has done everything from foster care and foster advocacy. She's done project management in real estate. She has done coaching, and she has also obviously been involved in hypnotherapy, which we're going to learn more about during the hour. I want to give a disclaimer to everyone out there. This is just food for thought based on our conversation. This is not to be advocates for any kind of mental health treatment or therapy that you either don't agree with or are not interested in. Therefore, please do not take this to be the thoughts or opinions of talkradio.nyc or of Frank About Health, but rather, again, food for thought for those interested in learning how to live a better quality of life. And that all being said, Karen, welcome to Frank About Health. It is my pleasure to have you here. I know we've already had obviously numerous conversations beforehand, and I'm really looking forward, not just for today's show, but definitely collaborating with you more in the future.
Oh, I am too. I too thank Sam for introducing us, and I'm excited about what we can do together, and excited about talking about hypnotherapy and coaching today. I do want to just clarify something you said. I was involved in foster care.
Sure.
I was never a foster parent. I was a
Understood,
guardian
yes.
ad litem, which is the child's voice in court. And so the reason I want to make that distinction is foster parents deserve a star. They deserve so much credit for what they do. And I worked with some foster parents that ended up adopting a large family of children that had been abused and neglected. And so I don't ever want to give the opinion that I was a foster parent, because that is a certain kind of person.
Understood. I mean, especially because they're involved in their development and their discipline and their training, and their raising them to be healthy individuals and adults getting older, while you are during the foster care system advocating for their voice when they're probably not in the position to defend themselves if need be. I understand. So in that regard, would you say that you have a legal background as well?
No, I do not. In fact, I was a guardian ad litem in a county in Illinois that did not require a guardian ad litem to be an attorney. Now, in Cook County, which is Chicago, you do have to be an attorney, and they have a huge guardian ad litem department, if you will. And I happened to, at that time, live in a suburb where I didn't know it at the time when I went for the training, that you did not need to be an attorney, but you were still considered an officer of the court. So it was a very responsible position. But no, I did not. I spent a lot of time in court with those kids, that's for sure. But no, right. I am not an attorney.
So how did all of that finally bring you to the point of being very focused on mental health and improvement in everyone's stress levels? And I know I looked on your website, you were involved with people who suffered from diabetic neuropathy and and you even got involved with senior executives and helping them achieve their confidence levels and esteem levels. How did you, I wouldn't say fall into it, but how did you pivot into it?
Oh gosh, there were a lot of pivots along the way. I have to say, I sometimes kind of joke when somebody asks me about my background, and I say that I have a portfolio career, because it is a portfolio of a lot of different things over the years. And
Yes.
the guardian ad litem work was actually a volunteer situation, and
Right.
but that was about the same time I was working with my husband as a headhunter. Some people know that term, executive, senior level executive search. So I did that for a
Right.
number of years with him. I had done some sales and marketing in the past. And then I started a radio show and interviewed authors of nonfiction books. And I always looked for authors who were writing about a subject that would make someone's life better. And I
Yes.
always hoped that when people tuned into my show, they might hear something that they otherwise never would have learned or heard.
Right.
But I suppose my interest in really helping people goes way back. My father was a psychologist. Actually, he was a minister first. So I grew up as a PK, a preacher's kid. And then he went on to do his postgraduate work in psychology and philosophy. And he became a therapist, a psychologist. And interestingly, going back any number of years, he used hypnosis in his practice. So, and there's a long time span between being in that environment with my father and now doing this work myself. But that's why I say there were a lot of pivots along the way. But when my radio show came to an end, I was kind of at a loss as to what I was going to do next. And so I hired a personal coach. And after working with her for a while, she said, I think you'd make a terrific coach. And it was kind of
Very
interesting.
nice.
I didn't have a real strong positive reaction at the time, but went on to, she said, you talk to some of your friends and see what they think. And they all said, oh, that's a no-brainer. That's exactly what you should do. So I got trained in coaching and did that for a while. And then I was always looking for new trainings, new approaches to working with people, and was introduced to rapid transformational therapy and really liked that word rapid. That was where the hypnosis fit, because RTT is based on hypnosis. So then I've gone on so I've been focusing more on the hypnotherapy, just finding that it is so effective so quickly, so rapidly, that that's really where I have wanted to focus.
So it's interesting how when you got involved in various areas of your life, one common thread through each of it is an understanding of another person's character, especially when you were, how did you refer to it?
A guardian ad litem.
Advocacy ad litem?
Guardian ad litem. Yeah. So
Guardian
I was an advocate. I was the child's voice in court. So the judge would look to me, because I had to keep in contact with the children, with the foster homes where they were placed, and then go back to the court and tell the judge what I thought the next best steps would be for these children. So yeah, I've always been geared toward wanting to be of service, wanting to help people.
And I can see, obviously, the influence of your father. Would you say some of your initial core training in hypnotherapy was a direct lesson from your father, or did you actually get licensed and go to school to become more involved in that, or get some training in that area?
Yeah. No, I've done my own training, and that was many years after. I mean, he's been gone for a number of years, but that was my first exposure to it. And I remember him talking about it, and but I was not involved in any way at that time.
Understood. Wow. So yeah, I think anyone who's involved in really understanding human behavior, understanding the value of the brain, the mind, the fact that it's really in our control and how we use and not take advantage of it, but how we be of service to others who need some help in activating their own mental resources. I don't know, maybe it could be a destiny call in some ways, or maybe it's just based on your own life circumstances. It's how you just naturally fall into it. I'm always amazed at people who do that. I mean, I consider myself one of those types. I mean, I always call it entrepreneurial, but I think sometimes when we're faced with certain situations beyond our control, we have no choice but to resort to that level of primal talent that we may have already been gifted with through family or just being born innately into the understanding of what kind of advocacy work you need to do. Listeners and viewers of Frank About Health are fully aware that over the last 2 years, not only were we dealing with the COVID pandemic, but I had been dealing with advocacy work for both my father as well as my cousin, who were both
Yes, you mentioned
dealing with. Yes, thankfully my father is on the mend, but
Right.
it's unfortunate when you get a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. We all know that it's about quality of life management at that point. And so either way, I find myself on one level relinquishing some of the sense of responsibility back to my father and so forth and so on, but on another, getting more advocates involved to take care of the longer term things that I know that I won't be available to do at a later time. So that constant balance juggling act that I do, it definitely wears on me. So when I find myself talking to people like you, it's a good reflection that I'm either doing the right thing or I need to pivot in the next direction or just regroup and try to see how to better maximize what I've already provided. So
Sure.
I am definitely looking forward to learn more about the hypnotherapy piece of your work. I've never been hypnotized, and it's always been a curious subject matter for myself, but I'm sure that it kind of probably scares some people. I don't know. I mean, we've all had people's concerns over things like the COVID vaccine. So if you can't convince people of that legitimacy, the question always becomes how sincere or how authentic is something like hypnotherapy is. And so we'll talk about that more later in the show. I think we're going to be headed towards a break soon.
Great.
But I look forward to learn more about you and your story and your background, and all about how in the next segment you pretty much discovered that, I think you said the last 13 years of your life was focused purely on mental health work, correct?
Definitely. Right. And I'll just say, when you said a lot of people might be scared of hypnosis, I think the only ones who are really scared of it are the ones whose only contact with it is what they've seen in movies or on TV, which represents it as pretty scary. And that's not at all what we're talking about here. We'll definitely get into clarification of that for sure.
As I say, we're going to be frank about it.
Absolutely.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for the next few minutes of commercial break, and right here on talkradio.nyc and on our social media platform, Facebook page, YouTube, LinkedIn, and twitch.tv. If you have any questions, please email them along, and Logan behind the scenes will forward them to us, and we'll go ahead and answer them on air. But we'll be back in a few. Stay tuned.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business, or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mara Bronthu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 1 p.m. Eastern on Fridays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
What really drives success in business? Introducing Intangify, the show that explores the intangible assets that create value and growth. I'm Matthew Asbell, your host and an attorney focused on innovation. Join me Fridays at noon Eastern to discover how innovation, culture, and other intangibles shape thriving companies from startups to established businesses. We'll share strategies to unleash your business's true potential. Tune in live on talkradio.nyc Fridays at noon Eastern and intangify your business today.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. And as you've just seen during the commercial break, I gave you a profile shot of Karen Ross and her, and all about her and Karen Ross Now, her website. I think let's just start with your radio show. I'd like to know exactly if that was the impetus to you to eventually get involved in coaching and hypnotherapy.
I don't know that I would say that. As I said, when the radio show came to an end, and that was more. I had a radio show here in Chicago for 10 years, and they sold the station, so the show came to an end. I later lived in South Carolina for a while and had a daily show there, and the owners of the station just one day decided to change the whole format of the station. So it's if anybody knows anything about the entertainment industry, it's very fickle, and you can be on the air one day and off the next. And so that's basically what happened. So I was at a real crossroads then. And that's when I hired a coach to help me figure out, what do I do next? So I guess I wouldn't say that the radio show was an impetus, but losing the radio show was an impetus to look for a new direction. And then that led me obviously to the coaching. But yeah, I really want to talk about hypnosis and some things that people may not understand about how impactful their minds are.
Oh, yes. So I know that you mentioned it was transformational therapy, rapid transformational therapy.
Yeah, that's
Is that in conjunction with other practices that you've been involved in or that you've learned or read about?
That's one of the modalities that I use. And that is where I was introduced to hypnotherapy. When I found that particular approach, it was based on hypnotherapy. So that's where it began. Yes.
Right. Okay. So let's say, for example, like your website says that people can contact you for a Zoom visit. I don't presume that during that Zoom visit, you do any hypnotherapy. You're just learning about the person's problem, and you're taking an assessment or an intake, as they would call it.
Yeah.
And what would be the next step in terms of either meeting with you or arranging an actual hypnotherapy session? How does your practice work?
Yeah. Well, first, to kind of have a better understanding of what I do, it's useful for people to understand the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Now, a lot of people don't even give that any thought. They just know that they're thinking thoughts all the time and don't consider necessarily that they have a conscious mind and they have a subconscious mind. And the thing is, the conscious mind can reject, it can accept, it can argue with, it reads between the lines, it's judgmental, it's noisy. Many of us may know our conscious mind because it talks to us all the time. And sometimes with a not very nice voice. It can be pretty harsh sometimes. Now, the subconscious mind, on the other hand, can only accept. And in reality, if people only understood that our subconscious mind is the most powerful, creative instrument in the universe. And once we really understand just how powerful the subconscious mind is and how we can use it, that's when it becomes life-changing. If we could, now as you said, when I have a 30-minute initial Zoom session with somebody, we talk about what they're dealing with. Is it anxiety? Is it chronic pain? Is it insomnia. Maybe they want to become a non-smoker, or they are wanting to shed some extra pounds. Weight and smoking are two areas that people kind of naturally link to hypnosis, and we can certainly do that. But there are so many other areas where it's just so valuable. And one of the interesting things that I just recently did a little bit of research, I thought, who has used hypnosis? Because I had a couple of people say, like you said, they're scared. Oh, I don't want to get, I'm scared of hypnosis. And so I can explain what happens, that you just go into and let's talk about that for a minute. You go into a deep state of relaxation. I think every time I do a session with somebody, at the end, they say, I don't know when I have ever been that relaxed. So that's number one. And the thing is, what we do is we quiet that noisy, conscious mind. We just kind of bypass it and let it rest. And sometimes, it's kind of happy to shut up for a while and just rest. And we go into the subconscious mind and allow it to do its work. And what most people don't understand about hypnosis is that they are in total control every minute. There is nothing about hypnotherapy that can make them do something they wouldn't normally do. That's where that stage hypnosis, it's a different approach that I don't fully understand and don't want to. I don't like it. I just, it kind of makes people look silly. Right. But anyway, one of the things I was curious about was, who are some of the well-known celebrities who have used hypnosis? I was blown away with some of the names I came up with. Can I share a few of those?
Sure, by all means.
And interesting what they used it for. A lot of actors, let's see, I've got Matt Damon, Drew Barrymore, Ellen DeGeneres, I guess she's not really an actress, Ashton Kutcher, Charlize Theron, they all used it to quit smoking. Some, I think I read someplace that Kevin Costner used it for, I don't want to attribute it to a certain person, but I know there was another actor that used it for stage fright. So we don't often think of our actors and actresses as suffering from stage fright, but they do. And so many have used it used hypnosis for stage fright. Here's what I knew that Kevin Costner was attributed to. He flew his personal hypnotist to Hawaii to cure his seasickness. So kind of interesting. Incredible. It is incredible. Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus have used hypnosis. Jackie Kennedy, Bill Clinton used it for smoking cessation. Oprah Winfrey, the list goes on. And as I was reading the list, I thought, oh my goodness, really? So, for those who do doubt that it is that mainstream, I think that's evidence that it indeed is. And it's widely.
It sounds like it's directly. No, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Well, I was just going to say it's widely accepted now in the medical field. I mean, medical institutions like Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, you can go online and look for information about hypnosis that is put out by Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic. Those kind of institutions are not going to use it if it isn't working, and if they don't see the validity of it. But what were you going to ask me?
Yeah, I was going to say, it also sounds like a direct correlation to meditation.
It's different. It's different because in meditation, you are quieting the entire mind. The goal there is to just silent everything and just have a completely quiet mind. With hypnosis, the subconscious mind is working. I mean, it's accepting new information. Sometimes we're getting rid of old information that no longer serves us. That's one of the most interesting things that comes up with hypnosis is we uncover beliefs that we have held for years sometimes. And when people realize that they held this belief and where it came from, and they look at it and say, well, I don't need to believe that. That's ridiculous. And yet it has been guiding their conscious actions for many, many years. Sometimes people remember something from their childhood. I've actually worked with people that have had a memory from when they were a baby. I haven't had this experience, but I just recently read about an experience where somebody's in hypnosis and they are experiencing the sounds and sights of being in the womb. And something occurs that causes a belief. That sounds a little crazy to some people, but it's been documented. But the point is that we find those beliefs that have not served us well. And when it's a long-standing issue that someone's been dealing with and they discover that it goes back to this belief that just no longer makes any sense, that in itself can be a huge change. But as far as stress and anxiety, we recruit the subconscious mind to help the individual better handle stress and anxiety. We can't take away the stressors. If I'm working with a senior executive in a major corporation, we can't remove the things that create his stress or her stress, but we can help them use the subconscious mind to better handle it, to see it differently, change their perspective on it. And many, many senior executives and business owners use hypnosis for that specifically.
Well, I know when I think back to my old days in my psych program where we looked about the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious mind, we always knew or learned that the subconscious mind was the middle of the road. Those things that were pretty much either about to be put into the surface or kept on reserve to be used in the moment when necessary. And the stress and anxiety triggers that we received were the messages that something is about to come out or be aware of something. And people who didn't know how to manage that stress or anxiety would resort to being depressed or just frozen in time and not being able to be as independent in how to resolve the crisis that they were dealing with, whether it was internally or around them. But I can now see from what you've just said that the whole hypnosis treatment that you're using is really making our subconscious mind more in our control, more in the driver's seat to help keep the balance between the conscious and unconscious mind. Is that fair to say?
Sure. Yeah, I think there are different ways to put it into words, but yeah, that's certainly one way to look at it. Another interesting idea about the subconscious and the conscious mind is that as powerful as the subconscious mind is, it takes its direction from the conscious mind. So in hypnosis, we're feeding new information to the subconscious mind, and the conscious mind is hearing it also. And those instructions, if you will, go to the subconscious mind, but they come through the conscious mind. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Well, we're about to take our second break, but I have some questions based on what you just said. So forgive me if I'm making a brief exit from our conversation, but we gotta
That's fine.
Just spend the next 2 minutes promoting our other shows on the network. So please stay tuned as we're with Karen Ross now to really learn more about the subconscious mind and hypnotherapy. And I'm getting ready to ask you a lot more questions when we return. We'll be right back in a few.
Sounds good.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be frank about health to advocate for all of us.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. During the commercial break, Karen and I were chatting a little bit about a brief exercise she's going to show us now, which is going to actually probably answer the questions that I was about to ask. So let's go right to the exercise, because then it'll minimize how many questions to ask, because I definitely am looking forward to show a video on what she does towards the end of this segment. So Karen, mentioned you have a brief exercise that shows the power of the subconscious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, the only caveat here is if anybody's listening and they're driving a car, do not do this. But for anybody who can just close their eyes and relax a little bit, I think that everybody will find this interesting if they haven't experienced it. And I'm thinking that maybe many of our listeners have not had much exposure to hypnotherapy. But anyway, what I would ask you to do, and Frank, do this, please, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Just take a deep breath and close your eyes and just really relax. Just take a couple of deep breaths and just let your whole body go. Just relax. And I want you to picture that you're standing at your kitchen counter. And on the counter is a large, plump, bright yellow lemon. Sitting next to it is a cutting board and a very, very sharp knife. Now pick up the lemon with your non-dominant hand and place it on the cutting board. And when you pick up the lemon and squeeze it ever so slightly, you notice that it has some give, which tells you it's full of juice. So now lay that lemon on the cutting board and with that very sharp knife, cut the lemon in half. And as you cut, juice from the lemon oozes out onto the cutting board. Now pick up one half of the lemon, hold it to your nose, and breathe in the fresh, pure scent of lemon. Now, most, if not all of us, will notice saliva starting to form in the back of our mouth. And even if you don't particularly like the smell of lemon. So now just set the lemon down on the cutting board, step back, swallow, take a deep breath and open your eyes. Now we all know that there was no lemon, no cutting board, no knife. And yet I'm going to ask you, did you notice saliva starting to form in your mouth?
Yes, I did.
So what that tells us, who do you think did that? It was your subconscious mind. And it was the power of the suggestion. And as long as you just stayed with me and did exactly what I instructed you to do, your body reacted, your subconscious mind reacted, and you had a physical reaction. So I think people find that kind of amazing to know just how powerful their subconscious mind is.
Yes. And we had a comment from twitch.tv from Cerebral Wind. What in the world was that? That was wild. Well, you know, it's funny. On previous shows, I've talked about the vagus nerve, which probably had a piece to do with in creating the saliva reaction, the pituitary gland, the amygdala, other aspects of the brain that would probably have indulged in that, but it's only going to do what information you feed it.
Exactly.
And what you were able to do with your voice, which was very calming, by the way, is create the scenario of my kitchen cupboard, that lemon, that knife. I saw myself, I'm actually left-handed, but my non-dominant hand is my right. So I put the lemon down, I sliced it. I actually saw the lemon as I'm breathing it in, and that's when the saliva reaction.
Yeah.
So what the subconscious is what you don't see. It's like the part that you use when you're dreaming, pretty much, right?
Sure. In fact, when I work with people, I give them a customized recording. So it's geared to exactly what they're experiencing and what they need to change. It's not a pre-recorded thing that everybody gets. Most people listen to that recording as they're going to sleep at night. And at first, and I try to make this clear to them, but at first they say, well, I started listening when I went to, but then I fell asleep. And I tell them that's perfect because your conscious mind is finally resting and your subconscious mind is hearing the message. And it's a perfect time when right between that being awake and being in deep sleep is a perfect time to use the subconscious.
In that example, I can see why hypnotherapy is not considered spooky, for lack of a better word, because I was in control. I wasn't like sent into another zone somewhere where I had no control of my thoughts or actions or whatever, which I guess probably comes from the movies, as you indicated.
Right.
So there's a difference between hypnotherapy and hypnosis, correct?
Well, no, not necessarily. There are different types of hypnosis, like we were talking about stage hypnosis. That is it's kind of the same concepts, but some people learn to do something a little bit different. And like I said, I don't care for it, so I haven't studied it. I can't fully explain what happens differently. I do think that people who do that kind of hypnosis become very aware of who is going to be conducive to that kind of reaction. And some people are going to be more susceptible than others. I worked with one woman. This was very early on when I was just starting to do hypnosis. And I was working with a friend that I had asked her to be, kind of one of my trial people. And she's a very, very spiritual person, very into a lot of different things, meditation and so on. And she warned me. She said, now I have to tell you, I go down very, very fast. And it was like, it was unbelievable. And I sat here and I thought to myself, well, what do I do now? Because she went in so fast. And some people do. Some people just immediately just kind of really fall into that state. But they still have total control. I tell people if something happens that requires your attention in your environment, you take care of that. And then you come back and we pick up right where we left off. A really good experience, I've got a funny experience. I do tell people it's best not to have your pets in your room because the pet actually picks up a different energy. And generally, they want to be very close to you. And this one woman commented that she had two cats, but she put them outside of the room. She closed the door. And we're right in the middle of the session. And pretty soon, one of her cats climbed up on her chest. And of course, she was startled. I was startled. Well, that cat happened to know how to open that door. So, cats can do some pretty wild things. But anyway, she just, obviously, it startled her. And so she was aware very quickly and just put the cat outside the door and closed it more securely and came back. And just take a few deep breaths and just go right back to where we were. So it's
Awesome.
it's that easy, it's that effortless, it's that comfortable. It's really a wonderful thing that people come through. I've talked to any number of people now who say they see a hypnotherapist where many people see a therapist, that they see a therapist every month, or like Kevin Costner flies his personal I wouldn't mind being Kevin Costner's personal hypnotherapist, and he could fly me to Hawaii anytime.
Absolutely. Well, no, I mean, you, as I suspected, you did answer all my questions, because just in the exercise of it, I saw the power of my subconscious mind. A lot of people are aware that I've spent the last 2 years advocating for a lot of mental and neurological health issues, but particularly epilepsy, which I have been living my life with. And luckily enough, for the last 15 years, it's been seizure controlled. However, I am a firm believer that even as I'm speaking to you right now, my brain waves are misfiring, because that's what an epileptic individual does have the condition of. But they're misfiring in a productive way, because I'm aware, based on how I'm feeling internally, or even based on the level of my intuition, which has increased over time, I'm able to use my epilepsy in the same way we just use the subconscious mind to reduce stress. So I was going to ask you about the power of the subconscious, similar to the power of living with epilepsy, but I went through the exercise with you, so you answered pretty much all of those questions.
Good. I'm glad.
I think, yes, and I thought for a second we had another comment from Cerebral Wind, but actually it was just another alert that we are 2 minutes until break. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you right now, after you have finished watching this show, please contact her and get involved. I'm going to contact you and get involved in a session, because I really do think, like, before we started this show tonight, and I say this to all of my guests, I always have, for some reason, not stage fright, but a little bit of tension, like, oh, is there going to be technical difficulties or whatever? And as I'm in the conversation, it all resonates and I calm down. I think in itself, the show is a form of therapy, or not hypnotherapy, but it's definitely a relaxing thing for me to do. I was going to show your video, but I think it's probably in the best that we close the show with your video, because after what I just went through and Cerebral Wind went through, this is something that everyone should participate in with you. And so that being said, when we return right here on this episode of Frank About Health, we are going to cover other activities that myself and Karen will be engaged in right here on the network, as well as in our related endeavors. So please stay tuned right here on talkradio.nyc, on twitch.tv, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and on our Twitter page. We'll be back in a few.
Great, thanks.
What really drives success in business? Introducing Intangify, the show that explores the intangible assets that create value and growth. I'm Matthew Asbell, your host and an attorney focused on innovation. Join me Fridays at noon Eastern to discover how innovation, culture, and other intangibles shape thriving companies, from startups to established businesses. We'll share strategies to unleash your business's true potential. Tune in live on talkradio.nyc, Fridays at noon Eastern, and Intangify your business today.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. Well, again, Sam, you've done it for me again, introducing me to Karen, just like you've introduced me to Phyllis, just like you've introduced me to Maury, just like you've introduced me to so many individuals that have definitely added value coming onto this show, showing what they do, and at the same time, helping me personally, like with these bone conduction headphones, or as I will with you, Karen, get involved in some hypnotherapy sessions
Right.
when we can coordinate. Um, I wanted to say that I'm letting everyone know, the audience know, that you and I are going to be doing my 100th episode together, which I'm proud to announce, which will be on November 16th, 2023. And there's a special surprise for everyone out there, but I'm letting the surprise happen on the 16th. So you have to stay tuned to watch what happens. But what I really wanted to discuss with you in terms of why the 100th episode, it's a conversation that we had in relation to understanding the value of being in the same environment together as we are communicating about mental health situations. I think I mentioned to you that I had appeared on Intangify with Matthew Asbell, which is one of our shows that's on Fridays, and vice versa. He appeared on Frank About Health. And what we did was we actually did both shows in his office. And we were able to really see the impact that just being in the same room created another dynamic in the conversation, and showing that possibly one of the conditions that has affected all of us mentally has been the quarantine, or has been the distance that we all had to take, especially during the time of COVID. And even though we do live in a world today that Zoom is definitely very much a part of it, there is still some limitations in how that works. And so I'm looking forward that on the 100th show, we will be in the same room together. And I wanted to know from your perspective, what excited you about that prospect? I think there was much more of a therapeutic thing that you were tuned on to, and I wanted you to share that with the audience.
About being together in person. Yeah, I think
Yes, exactly.
there's definitely a different energy, a stronger energy when we can. I think Zoom is a gift we have all received over the last 3 years, and I am thrilled to have met so many people I never would have met otherwise. But there's that wall. It's just very, very different to be with someone, and just creates a different, stronger, more positive energy. So I'm thrilled to anticipate doing that show with you, and congratulate you on 100 episodes. That's quite something. A lot of podcasts come and go pretty quickly, and so you're obviously providing a terrific service, and people are getting a lot out of what you bring to the airways. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. And again, I have to thank Sam, because as I think I mentioned on previous episodes, I originally came on to talkradio.nyc when it was known as Talking Alternative Broadcasting. It was literally in studio with speakers, microphones hanging, calls coming in. There was no Zoom situation. But now that he has set it up that way, definitely starting with COVID and beyond, it just made it more interactive and more opportunities from that perspective. Plus, it is still a radio network. So our show, the audio version of our show, will be rerunning over the next several weeks, whether it's on weekends, overnight. I know there's always a repeat before next week's show, a couple hours beforehand. So it's like where we left off type of situation. But then, of course, the beauty of social media, so that our video stream, once it's archived on our talkradio.nyc YouTube channel and Facebook feed and LinkedIn feed, we're able to share it with everyone, especially if they didn't see it live. But there's still something missing, and that's why the 100th episode will be a kickoff to doing many more shows together, and I'm looking forward to start that off with you. We're at the 10-minute mark, or I think the 7-minute mark. What I'm going to do is show that 3-minute video, and then come back and then wrap up the show with how people can get a hold of you and stuff like that, and also announce what is on slate for tomorrow. And so I'm going to do this right now. Hopefully all the sound effects will be working. So bear with me, and we'll get right to
So, what's this rapid transformational therapy all about? Well, you'll be relieved to know it's not woo-woo, it's actually science. The brain is amazing and complex, so for the sake of simplicity, we'll break it into its three main parts: the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious mind. Hypnosis itself is a natural state that happens to you on a daily basis. It's a trance-like state in which the subconscious is outwardly active. I like to call it the autopilot. For example, have you ever been driving and you arrive at your destination having no idea how you got there? Your conscious mind was focusing on what you were going to cook for dinner, the argument you had with your partner last night, the text message you read when you stopped at the lights, and, oh my goodness, I need to collect the dry cleaning, etc. This is a form of hypnosis, when the subconscious mind actively takes over to help you out. It took care of the whole driving thing for you while you were busy thinking about other things. Your subconscious mind holds way more information than your conscious mind, and hypnosis enhances our access to it. The unconscious mind is the vault in which everything we've ever learned or experienced is kept. This is the programming that creates our reality. We don't usually have access to our unconscious mind, given it's unconscious, yet in it lies every memory and every belief we hold that we are now unaware of. The good news is that sometimes our unconscious mind will share information with the subconscious, giving us access to it. And the really exciting part is that in hypnosis, the gateway between them is more open. To understand it more easily, let's imagine the mind like a computer. Your conscious thoughts are right there on the desktop. They sit there on the main screen. Your subconscious thoughts you can get to, but you'll have to dig into the files a little to find what you need. Your unconscious mind, however, is the programming way beneath the surface. It's the deepest part of the operating system, not accessible without the help of an expert who knows the shortcuts and how to get you into the system. And once you gain access, you'll again need the expert's help to make beneficial changes. The thing is, we update, reboot, and upgrade the operating systems on our computers and devices all the time. But we don't do this with the most important operating system we'll ever use, our minds. Most of us are running our lives on inadequate, outdated, poorly functioning operating systems. Usually this system is created and hardwired in our childhood. The life we experience now is direct output from that old programming. And even if we want or believe something else now, the outcomes are set and they become our reality. When our computers and devices start to give us issues and stop offering us our desired results, we immediately look for ways to upgrade their systems. It's crazy that we don't do this with our minds. How old are you today? How old and outdated might your programming be? Do you need some help to find the blocks and bugs in your old programming? You deserve the freedom you'll find. And I'd love to help you discover it in a rapid transformational therapy session.
I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that for I hadn't seen that for a while. It is good.
Yes, yes. And so now, as I suspected, we're at the 3-minute to ending mark. Well, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, please remember the website is www.karenrossnow.com. You'll find that video on there. You'll find her phone number to contact her for a Zoom session to be able to get involved in hypnosis if it's going to help you reduce stress, reduce your smoking habit. Probably like in the cases you've talked about on your website, you helped a person live life even with neuropathy, or rather improved on the neuropathy. And senior executives who were losing confidence, who are on their A game again. You know, it's just a behavior modification approach, or as the video indicated, a chance to reboot your computer in case it's a little bit out of date. I'm a firm believer in that. Being an epileptic patient, I do realize the power of the brain waves, the neurons, the instincts, not to mention, of course, the unconscious, subconscious, and conscious level mind. But it's in how we adapt to what we were given and how we use it effectively. And I think working with you will help people have a new perspective going forward. So I want to thank you for being on this episode of Frank About Health to definitely start the launch of a lot of different projects that we're both going to be working on together. And in addition, hopefully from this episode, you'll have a lot more participants, coming to see you,
Well, and some of the things that we can talk about in the future are self-hypnosis. I teach people, you don't have to have me around all the time. You can learn self-hypnosis. There's also, we'll talk about how we're hypnotized out in the world. We walk into a store, we pull into a parking lot. There are some very strong hypnotic suggestions that we're faced with every day. And we don't think of them as hypnosis, but they are. So there's a lot of things we can talk about.
Absolutely. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for tomorrow's slate of shows on talkradio.nyc, starting at 10 o'clock with Tommy D and Philanthropy and Focus, at 11 o'clock with Stephen Fry and Always Friday, 12 o'clock with Matthew Asbell and Intangify, closing out the week at 1 o'clock with Dr. Mira Brancu and The Hard Skills. I'll be back next week on an episode of Frank About Health, again with Jeff Dimitrak on the Stages of Epilepsy podcast. And then I'll be coming back in 2 weeks with a nutritionist who's going to talk about how to lose weight while using your mind. Again, I'm sticking with October, mental health and neurological health awareness month. And again, Karen, thank you for being here. I will see you in about 5 or 6 weeks, I think it is. And when we celebrate Frank About Health's 100th episode. Thanks again, Dylan, Logan, for helping engineer this show, as well as for reaching out with Cerebral Wind. And we're signing off now. I will definitely call you in about an hour, and see you next week. Alrighty, take care.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.